Okay, so it's not going to really be like a breakdown format bit by bit because I linked the Substack that I wrote my critique on it in the description. So it's in there, and there's definitely critiques there with the overall arching theme of revisiting Revelation by James Mason. Now, is this to say he's misled? Yeah. Is this to say that he is, not really promoting anything that should be near to a true representation of the faith? Yes. This is what the West does ad nauseum at times with this, because he went off the rails with thinking that grace and the energies, the divine mysteries and the economy of the church given to us from the energies of God is something that is exclusive to, European people of European heritage, and that grace isn't attained in other races of people across the world. Then what would be the point of going to evangelize and promote the truth of Christ to other people if they're never going to be saved? Is that a lie? Is that just a flat out lie to him? Is that is that to say that we have a divine essence or a divine part to us that were created through God and through Adam that we were born out of? Is it just so it's just Europeans? I highly doubt that. This is just like the racial colorization of Christ that people are so highly concerned about how Christ is depicted to them. And I'm saying, is it not important to see Christ, I guess, as a member of your own race? Yes. I mean, there's Ethiopian Orthodoxy has Christ as a distinctly, obviously, more brown, skin-toned kind of looking figure. They're saints. Saint Moses the Black. He's one of them. He's a saint. So how can someone who reached a point of theosis of the church, so how can they reach that point and you say, oh, I'm a man, they don't get to go to heaven because they're a member of a different race? Sticky situations. And this is part of the problem with how the Western decay of the faith has really turned Protestants into their own popes and popes into their own Protestants. So it's really become a facet, an overarching theme of it kind of compounding itself. And this manipulation, this kind of misinformation doesn't give way to grace, right? It doesn't help us with the grace of what the church should offer. It doesn't help that with this grace that we have the ability to have it. That we have ability as human beings to reach a point of theosis, to a point of we're going to be valued and we're going to be cherished by God through realizing of the revelation of the eternal logos of Christ. But if you're a member of a different race, sorry, out. Not for you, just for us. Doesn't exactly speak to what the spirit should be, because there's a spirit there too with the economia and the energy of the grace and the church that is carried out through the royal priesthood. So now all of a sudden you're saying the priests of different races are also unworthy because they can't attain that grace. Oof. So now you're making now you're just digging these holes even deeper, and this is where your logic is going. I mean, it's the opposite reflection on the whole woke thing, but yet at the same time, it's kind of the same thing. It's kind of the same thing that he's doing with this Christian identitarian nonsense, because it's like, well, the woke crowd is like, well, our Jesus needs to be black, or he just needs to be more heavily melanin toned because of, we need representation. Okay. Like I said, Ethiopian Orthodox does that. I mean, they depict him as obviously a darker skinned Christ. But now to go the other side and say, oh, only people of European descent can be saved. Only white people. That's it. No matter how bad they are, they could be a Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm sure he's controversial figure, but to say the least. But it's people like him. Oh yeah, he's in heaven. Like, it's like, whoa, biting off more than you can chew sometimes on that. So to think that our material bodies are just, what we're born into, obviously our bodies contain a soul. And we're born into this world. We don't really have a choice of how we look on the outside. We do have a choice of how we become on the inside. We do. That is what should be the key. That is what should be what the more the end goal is, right? Because the grace, the hardening of your heart, the softening of your heart is really what's judged by God. What's contained in your heart. What kind of malice do you hold against? What kind of grudges do you hold? What kind of sins have you committed? I know, preaching. I'm not trying to do that, because I'm just as unworthy of a sinner as the rest of the world. Anybody who's ever existed besides Christ. So that is, something that is just perpetually in this book. And it's so strange, and how, you see all this weird woke philosophy stuff, and all these abstractions of how they're trying to change things. And then you get it on the flip side, which is supposedly, James Mason is supposedly on the far right, which is another conundrum in and of itself, because he's not. And I mean, come on, like you're really going to be that misled to be in and try to be in any kind of context to be credible, to discredit other people just based on their race, because they don't deserve the divine mysteries. They don't deserve the sacrament of baptism. They don't deserve, after they've gone through all the catechism, they don't deserve to try to go, and be better people, be better Christians. It does. And there's the other thing. You can even unchristianize this argument and say people just want to be better people. They want to be left alone. They just want to do good things for hopefully their families, and just be good people, right? You can unchristianize it, and you're still going to wind up with kind of an overall Christian theme there with that. But, I mean, that's a little bit easier to judge, oh, well, it's the content. I know this is controversial. It's the content of their character, which are just true. They're true. Those are true words. Those are true words. I mean, albeit came from a controversial source, those are true words. And that is where I think James Mason is just so off the rails on some of this Christian identitarian nonsense, where this is obviously kind of a book review, more of a critique. It doesn't bode well. It doesn't bode well for his argument to just pick the flip side of the quote unquote woke argument, turn it inside out, and say, oh, these people over here, saved by grace. These people over here, rest of you, see ya. Bye. Doesn't work like that. We're men, women. Can't judge people like that. Only God can judge people. No, I said only God can judge me, which is another tagline. It's true though. I mean, the West has kind of warped that in a sense again. But see, this is what it always circles back to with the West. It's always, it has to be like this. This is the way it is. When they don't realize there's a whole structure and economy into the church that exists, and these priests are ordained with this knowledge for a very, very good reason, very specific reason. And they sure as heck, they sure are better people than me. I mean, way better men. So, how can, and women, nuns too, gotta shout out to the nuns. And how can they be those kind of people that promotes that kind of ideology and be at peace and be at grace if they're going to deny somebody else grace? I mean, gotta be a pretty egregious offender. You gotta be a pretty, just looking at you, James Mason. You gotta be a pretty, controversial figure. But to just equate this to race, you can't do that. You can't. And it's just as bad as the quote unquote woke crowd. So that's it. That's all I got.